Okay, we're here with Bridget Duffy, who is a Green Party candidate for California State Assembly District 22. Bridget, thank you for being here with us. Why don't you go ahead and let us know why you're running to this election?
Well, it all goes back to, I guess, when Bush was elected. That's when I started getting more politically aware. And I read a book by Ralph Nader called 17 Solutions. And I never got quite past the first one, which was everybody should run for office.
Right.
So I got that idea, and it seemed like a good idea to me. It seemed like going to the authorities about the misdeeds of the authorities is never going to work. So becoming the authorities ourselves, which is our right as Americans to do, well, technically, then we become the authorities. That's why I started running for office, and that's simply why I keep running for office, and that's why I decided to run for assembly. He's a man who's just sliding into his position through family and money ties, and was going to go unopposed pretty much, and I just was like, no, not unopposed.
So you've run for office several times before. Can you tell us about that? What you've run for, and how those campaigns have gone?
Yeah. Well, the very first time I did it, I just the first two times were city council. Once here in Citrus Heights, where I was raising my family. I'm now living in the Bay Area, so I ran for Pacifica City Council as well. Both times I got almost 15% of the vote. I didn't spend any money or have any support, and I do a lot of stuff. I have a family, and I have the things that I do all the time. So I wanted to see if a person could run with little means and little support, and how well they would do. And both times I think I proved pretty conclusively, at least at the city level, this is what I'm finding out now, is when you get, I've heard in the halls of revolution throughout the country where I've visited, that city level politics is where it is possible to do what we're talking about. And that beyond that, it's almost impossible. And I have seen that with my own eyes. This is county and up is almost mafiosa kind of syndicated. They pick people who will go along with the programs, period. And if you're anybody who won't go along with their programs, the insurance, big ag, all that stuff, chemical companies, military, cahooting with the military. Unless you're willing to go along with those basic, ideas of their march, you won't get anywhere. Like literally, unless people kind of can wake up to this idea that we do have a vote still, and that we could use it very powerfully if we were paying attention. But at this point, as far as I can figure, about 2 million Californians are going to decide the fate of our whole state in this election, because nobody even knows the election's going on. The people that do are just, following Google's prompting to vote for whoever they're hearing about. They're not going to read. And so literally 2 million people are going to decide whether there's a $3 toll hike on 9 Bay Area bridges, which is something did you hear about this?
You might have mentioned it to me before, but I don't know much about it.
I actually just found out about it. I mean, these are like huge things on the ballot, and nobody's paying attention yet. 9 Bay Area bridges, there's a measure, it's called Measure 3. The reason why they called it 3 is because it's a $3 increase in the tolls on 9 Bay Area bridges. And this is going to be decided literally by, not very many people. So this is how totalitarianism is, actualizing in our midst. is a small group of people are deciding the fate of the larger mass of people. That's not democracy, that's totalitarianism. But it's a fixable, in my opinion, it's a fixable situation. All we need to do is engage people and educate them about their rights as Americans. I feel like we're living in a very dangerous time, you and I, Mike, and others who are stepping out, because we are telling people true things about their rights as Americans: freedom of speech, freedom of the press, you know, freedom to run, freedom to vote, you know, all these things. They don't want Americans to know this anymore. They're educating that out of the system. You know, they're swiping it out of the system. They're not teaching people anymore. And so that's why you and I are going to be a danger to society as far as they're concerned, because we might let people know, hey, there's an election going on, or, you know, hey, do you know you can run for office? You know, stuff like that. We become a danger to their society when we say that.
Right. And what do you think is their motivation?
Well, now this is where it gets a little controversial. I mean, obviously, it's not money. They have plenty of that. It's power. But what exactly do they want this power for? I think, and I know this sounds a little crazy, but I think it's literally a backlash of a pent-up sexuality that has had no proper outlet for many hundreds of years now. Our country was founded by Puritans who were a minority group with very cult-like ideas, and that is how our sexual mores have developed in this country. Very, very restrictive. Europe looks at us like, there's no Puritans anymore. Why are you still abiding by these crazy, restrictive rules that give no outlet for healthy sexuality? So to me, when I see men hogging all this power and money, and then I see things like we see with Sheriff Balamos, where else is this sexuality supposed to, how is it supposed to express itself if we give it no healthy outlet? So to me, it's really just a pent-up sexual reaction.
Interesting. So I know that you are a strong advocate for women and women entering government and in roles
Definitely.
of authority. Can you talk about that? And do you think that's a good way forward for our legislature?
Well, obviously, I mean, we have an imbalance. All Chinese medicine says all disease comes from imbalance. And in the United States of America, 80% of all power structures, including the government, but also including business, is male dominated. And when women try to enter these halls of power, I do it. I go in and I speak truth to power. They don't like it. They don't understand it completely. We're not on the same wavelength. It would take, it's like a cultural barrier, much like racial barriers, that there's been so much segregation for so long. It's hard to have healthy communication without frustration. But obviously, you can see the way everything is going. If we continue to be this out of balance, what's going to happen? We can't continue to be this out of balance. So to me, the only answer is yes, I'm a taxpayer. I work as hard as men. I pay taxes like men. I have certain ideas about how things should be. And I demand at this point in 2018 that I be heard, period. And that I be represented in government. You know, this is crazy that 80% male. The ERA. Is it the ERA? Yes, the ERA. Actually, if we pass that with a few, refurbs, we could easily mandate a 50% representation on every board, every tax-paying, every government agency, every corporation. We deserve 50% representation. We are 50% of the public, and we are treated as if our opinions don't count, and the way we talk is too flowery or emotional. And you know, it's like I was talking with actually Josh Jones and Sadie, and we were saying how truly bizarre it is that for a man, yes, Josh Jones. Vote for Josh Jones for governor. Everything can be saved, like that. But how insane is it that men who are good at being divorced from their emotions are given more power? Like, that's a sign that, oh, this guy is, you know, this is the guy to put in power because he's divorced from his emotions. And if a man does show emotion, he's like almost ostracized from any inner circle of male power. And it's just, it's truly, it's almost, I mean, you would almost think, are they doing this on purpose? But I think it's, you know, it probably has its roots organically and could be easily straightened out, just like every other problem we're facing on planet Earth today.
It's funny you touched on, you know, the emotional aspect, and I think that men have emotions too, and those emotions are ego and anger, and as well as the other emotions, you know, that are positive. But we go to war all the time because of, you know, what may be emotions of men. You know what I mean? So to say that there's something unequal about men and women and their emotions, I don't know that that's a good argument, because the decisions we've made, I think a lot of times are emotional as well. Look at our current president.
That's true. You're right about that. It is actually, wow, I never even thought of it about it like that. That actually is, they're very emotional, really. When
Right. Yes.
It's just
So, another thing I believe you're running on is healthcare for all. Do you think with women in office, it would be easier for us to pass that?
Well, to be honest with you, any amount of pushback from the people of California right now today, Jerry Brown wants to go out a hero. Right now we're in an election, and almost half, all legislators in the next 2 elections are going to be switched over. The public used to put pressure on politicians. Like, say, if you want to be reelected, then maybe you should pass this healthcare bill. But at this point, this healthcare bill is in one person's desk in the state assembly, which is the office I'm running for. And I guarantee you, my promise is that if I do get elected, I'm going right into that office and I'm getting that on the floor to be voted on, because that is, he's stopping a democratic process, and we should all be upset about this. Healthcare for all in California is the only thing that makes sense. We have people dying still and being sick because they are underinsured or not insured at all. It's costing California money. It is costing us industry. Industry is not moving here because of the healthcare costs of hiring more people. You know, in a big industry, you have to hire more people and you have to pay for their healthcare. People are going to Canada. Industries are going to Canada rather than move here. They'll be right across the border from the United States. They just get free healthcare there, and they have to pay for healthcare for employees here. It's a simple mathematical thing. The only opposition is the insurance companies, and at this point, they've gone too far when they are putting people's lives and health. I have a son. I'm one of these families. We're one of these families that we fell through the cracks. In about 2010, my husband's insurance went to catastrophic insurance. My son was 10. He got appendicitis 2 weeks after we lost our Kaiser, and instead of costing it $150, it cost $5,000. And we had 2 little boys together, and they were athletic, so they were always going to the hospital. So we were always $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 every year in medical bills and debt. It's cost us, we had to go bankrupt a couple of times. And what's the worst part is our children have only had sick care since they were 10. And now I have a 23-year-old who seems to have a chronic illness, because probably something that should have been caught when he was 13 or 14, we had only sick care. It fell through the cracks, and now I don't know what's going to happen. So this is insane. People's health and lives are at risk. And Jerry Brown could go out a hero right now. He's always claimed to be a liberal and for the people. The people have supported him and made him who he is and given him a good life to live. And he doesn't want to say thank you to the people by giving us, just signing that bill and giving us health care. I don't understand it. I feel like we need to push that to happen. And I think we could push that to happen because any embarrassment to Jerry Brown right now would be devastating to him. He wants to go out a hero. All we have to say is, you want to go out a hero? There's one way. Sign it.
Yes, I think obviously it's something everybody needs. And I like to say we all have a pre-existing condition. It's called mortality. So I don't know how they can tell people that they don't deserve health care. I met you, I think I'd seen you at a couple of events in the past, but I think I met you the first time at an event that was about police reform. And I think that's something that's very important to you. Can you talk about that?
Yes, one of the things that radicalized me as a political dissident was my ex-husband, the father of my daughter, was shot and killed by the police in Napa. I guess it's about 9 years ago, and he wasn't committing a crime. It was a Sunday afternoon, middle-class neighborhood. He goes out, his hands are in the air, neighbors see this. Neighbors actually took a picture of the body. There was no weapon near it. One of the police shot him in the head, killed him instantly. 60-year-old RN, and the police officer was not charged or reprimanded. He was in fact promoted to the SWAT team. So at that point, to me, all that we've been seeing in this Bush takeover, this quote unquote right-wing takeover, which is really a very small minority in our country. It's really a coup. It's been a slow motion coup. And what we're seeing with these police going unchecked when they make, okay, if it's a mistake and you shouldn't have killed him, well, when I make a mistake, I have to pay a price for that mistake. But when police are making mistakes at the cost of people's lives, they are still not being expected to suffer the consequences, essentially. And that's just making it worse. The cops have taken over. I mean, 60% of every city budget goes directly to the police department. It's supposed to be for fire and police, but it's mostly police. We see more and more police chiefs taking over city management jobs. City management jobs are the highest paying job in any city, and they are the person with the most power in any city. So we have police chiefs going straight out of the police department into the highest seat of power in cities, and it's happening all over the place if you pay attention. And it happened here in Citrus Heights. We now have ex-police chief as a city manager, and you can see it because now all the cars are new, all the police cars are new, and there's like twice as many as there used to be. There's helicopters buzzing in the air all the time. A car crashed outside my house into a stop sign. I said there was 9 cop cars chasing him through this small neighborhood, and I got mad. I told the cops, I said, if you had done this a half hour earlier, there's a stream of 3rd graders walking by here at 3 o'clock, elementary school kids. I said, what exactly did this man do? It was a misdemeanor. He was seen breaking into cars. This is kind of like the Stephon Clark thing. Breaking into cars doesn't equal shooting somebody 20 times. And in this case, they only chased him through a neighborhood and made him crash into a stop sign. He was a 26-year-old kid. I'm like, this is what you get when you have a police chief as a city manager, and 60% of all our budgets go directly into thinking of how to make the police more busy than they already are. I mean, it's clearly a connection to what's happening, and we have to pay attention to it. And when my husband was killed like that, it was 6 months after Oscar Grant was murdered. And since then, all we have heard about, and obviously, it's not stopping, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that about your ex-husband and the father of your daughter.
His name was Richard Posha.
I'm sorry?
His name was Richard Posha. I like to say his name.
Excellent. Richard Posha. Great. So do you think the militarization of the police, what's the source of that? Do you think it comes from our military foreign policy that we seem to want to go and have war all over the place? Is that just a continuation of that, or where does the over-policing come from?
Right. Well, I think it's very clear that it's the military industrial complex grew into the military / prison industrial complex. The prisons, the jails. I was in jail in Las Vegas. Woo! not for those reasons. I was there as a peace protester, and I wound up in jail. But their jails run on military time. So breakfast, listen to this, is at like 4 a.m. You're in jail. You've got nothing to do. There's not even a good book. They give you a pencil with this much lead, and once you're done writing, you have to wait until the next week. I was done with that pencil like in a half hour, and I went back and I said, "Can I get this sharpened or a new pencil?" No, you have to wait till next Saturday.
Wow.
And okay, so nothing to do, no education going on, and you are going to wake people up at 4 a.m. for breakfast. Serve them lunch at 10 a.m. and then dinner again, I think was at like 4. Because what, you're all out of the military and you're used to that schedule? I mean, do you really like that schedule so much? Now that you're not in the military, you want to just continue it? I mean, it's just another example of people coming straight out of the military, which, by the way, I don't know if many people know this, but most of our military are trained, guess where? And guess by who? Israel. And Israelis train our police. And we have a big problem. We have a big problem, and but I don't think it's a problem that can't be solved, because the military, most of the military and most of the police are us, pure and simple people. You know what I mean? But it's the higher ups. This is why I you know, when I see a sheriff like in San Mateo County who's clearly not living up to the moral expectations of the public, that is a good opportunity to retire somebody. You know what I mean? And we have a lot of people in key positions who are detached from their emotions in a way that is, they might express anger and they might express sexuality, but they're not going to express compassion. You know, they're not going to do anything that helps the situation. They need to get out of office. We need to get rid of them. They need to be humble and sit down.
So how about, since you've touched on it a couple of times, you give us a brief review of what happened with Sheriff Bolanos there in San Mateo County.
Okay, yeah, this is another thing about, this is how the press, I think, used to work. I'm not, you know, by trade a journalist, but because I was running for state assembly, I wanted to use it as a vehicle to gather information about. And I stopped by Sheriff Bolanos' office a couple of times just because he was the current sheriff. And I had gotten a robocall about 2 sheriffs running, and I couldn't find any actual information out about it. So I decided to go to this forum where both of the sheriffs would show up. At that forum, a man stood up and tried to raise a point. Everybody shut him down, especially the Democratic Club leadership. And they had done that to me once at a Democratic Club debate. They had shut me up and tried to kick me out. So I ran out to the guy and found out what he was trying to say. And what he was trying to say was this whole story, which was Sheriff Bolanos is running for re-election. But the truth is, he was never elected the first time. He was appointed by the now superintendent, Supervisor Don Horsley, who had been a sheriff and then became a supervisor. And as a supervisor, he started appointing sheriffs, which makes sense in a way. But anyway, Sheriff Bolanos and the other sheriff, the sheriff above him, his name was Monks, they were both caught inside an illegal trafficking brothel in Las Vegas while on a business trip for the county, by the way. And he was detained and handcuffed. There was a sting operation, an FBI sting operation. It was called Operation Dollhouse. They just happened to be there at the wrong time, but they did get handcuffed and detained by the FBI, and it's all, everybody knows about it. All the higher ups know about it. Senator Hill, Jackie Spear, Kevin Mullen, the supervisors, everybody in government understands this and still appointed him regardless. And now he's running for re-election and they've all endorsed him. And Channel 7 did a story with this man that I got the story from, and Channel 7 won't run it. And I called up Channel 7 and I said, why aren't you running the story? It's very pertinent. And they said, oh, it's old news because everybody knows this. And I said, really? Everybody knows this? I didn't know it. I'm a voter in San Mateo County, and I would like this information before I vote. They still never ran it to this day. Nobody's running it. So it's just getting out there by you and I and a few other people that are trying to raise the consciousness. Why elect a man who refuses to face it, has lied about it, and there's all this evidence that he panders to trafficking operations. Now, this isn't just like, I'm a horny dude, I'm going to go see a prostitute. This trafficking is when girls and boys are kidnapped, basically, and against their will forced into a lifestyle. And basically, I said to the FBI agent I went to a seminar about it. This is how I met the other people that we did that tape with. But he was an agent of some sort in the government. He wouldn't say which agent because there was too many politicians there, he said. But a special agency determined to face this trafficking issue, which apparently is bigger than I thought. And most of the customers, he even said, doctors, lawyers, sheriffs, DAs. I said, why aren't these guys going to jail? What, they're the ones, perpetuating it with their money. And if in a drug deal, the person buying drugs and the person selling drugs are equally criminalized, why in this situation, like with prostitution even, people who pander to traffickers and prostitutes are not considered criminals, and people who are on the other end are considered, it's really kind of lopsided when you think about it.
Right.
And
there's definitely an unequal justice, unequal representation under the law. And for people who want to research that case about Sheriff Bolanos and Monk, the name of the operation was Operation Dollhouse, and I think you can find that online and find some news reports on that. So what other issues did you want to review that you're running on before we sign off here?
Well, I've been doing a little bit of research in the last couple of days, and I've been doing a little bit of math, and I've been doing a little survey as well. When I go to a store, Starbucks, I'm in line.
I know you're very active. I think it's impressive how much you do.
Well, I'll ask people, do you know there's an election going on? And so far, I've had about 75% people don't know there's an election going on. Right. Which would fit into a quote that I heard along the way by somebody that seems to know what they're talking about, that they're only expecting about a 23% turnout for this election. Wow. Which means, I did the math, it means roughly 2 million voters are going to decide to fade in a governor, blah, 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 blah. All they need is a 50.1%, but that's 50.1% of a 25% turnout, which means it's only like, 13% of the public is actually making these decisions. So really what I'd like is for people to just talk to each other and tell each other to vote and look. I'm trying to make a voter's guide. I'm sure the Greens have a voter's guide. There's a pissed off voter's guide that you can find. Gail McLaughlin is running for Secretary of State. What an incredible opportunity we have in California. Josh Jones, if they can win I don't even know his name. I'm not even going to repeat his name, but there's a sure winner that everybody's talking, Gavin Newsom. If he can win the governorship on June 5th with 13% of the vote, why can't we, the Greens, the Independents, the people who are fed up with things the way they are, why can't we gather 13, 14% of the population and get Josh Jones in as governor? I mean, this is what I was trying to tell this young person I was talking to the other day, who's probably not even, he's only going to vote because I'm forcing him to. But he doesn't understand. I said, if we had key leadership that we didn't have to convince about climate change, we didn't have to convince them that we were in an emergency in climate change. We didn't have to convince them that the way the elections are run is not fair to poor people. And that's why we don't have more representation. So when you start out with already knowing these things in leadership, everything becomes easier, you know? So to me, I think we could do a big revolutionary act in California in this month of May, and call people you haven't called before. Have a couple of people over for dinner. Play one of Mike Gonzalez's interviews and talk about it. I mean, this is not going to happen unless we make it happen ourselves. We cannot wait for anybody else. We have to take it into our own hands and say, no, if it only takes 13% to win an election, we can get Josh Jones in we can get 13 or 14%, believe me, just with a handful of people. And Ralph Nader was the one that told me that.
Yeah, I like Ralph Nader a lot myself too. And just to review, Gail McLaughlin is running for lieutenant governor. And she's
it's lieutenant governor?
Well. Yeah, lieutenant governor. Josh Jones is running for governor. And Eric Rydberg is running for Secretary of State. Have you heard of Eric?
I looked Eric up. There was also another Green, Michael Feinstein.
Yes, and Michael Feinstein is as well.
Secretary of State?
Secretary of State, yeah.
Okay. Could you imagine?
Yeah, I'm hoping that they can all make the top two and then, really give it a run for the general.
This is what I'm saying. We used to think of it in terms of that, but Gavin Newsom is not thinking in terms of that. He's going to get 13% of the vote, and he's going to win the election with that. We, the Greens, Josh Jones, actually could do the same thing. With a very small grassroots effort, I think we can easily command 50.1%, which would put him in the office without a runoff.
Right. I would definitely.
I have high hopes. I hope.
Well, that's what we're doing with this channel, is trying to get as much exposure for Greens and what you're doing, grassroots democracy, which is a pillar of the Green Party.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do, is get the word out.
You're a real hero, Michael.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's a little more kind than the reality, but okay. So, hey, do you have a website or a way that anybody could contribute to your campaign or help with volunteer, to your cause?
Well, to be honest, I am really not prepared, but I saw a great Democracy Now! The other day. Geez, I can't remember, but it was all about the women's issue. And she said, don't wait until you're ready. So I was like, okay, then I'm doing it right. She says, do it, don't wait until you're ready. And that's exactly how I'm doing it. I am not ready. I don't have a website. I pretty much have very, very little that people can look towards, but I do have a telephone number, and I am willing to talk to people, and I'm willing to show up at house parties. I'm willing to gather with other candidates. I think that would be important. Having gatherings with other candidates would be important. My number is 415-760-2084, and texting is best, but I'm not that prepared. Okay,
you also have a Facebook that people could connect with you on.
I do have a Facebook, and I'm not, I'm kind of old school. I'm from the other side of the hill down in Pacifica, and it's, believe it or not, a lot of people don't even carry cell phones there. And if they do, they're those little flip phones. So they look at you like you're crazy if you have the internet on your phone. so we're kind of a different breed right now. No, everybody's used to everybody being connected online and everything. But I come from a place where there is an ocean and a sky.
Yeah, for people that don't know, you're in Pacifica. And
That's right.
Right on the beach, pretty much. And
Right there on the beach.
It's kind of a little enclave, too.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful little enclave. Unfortunately, there's so much relaxation going on that it's very difficult to get people into talking about politics.
I see. Yeah. I see. Okay. Okay. Okay, Bridget. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll put your Facebook, and if you want me to put your phone number on this video when I post it, I'll do that so people can get a hold of you and hopefully help you out. And then hopefully we could have an impact on this election. I think 2018 is going to be pretty exciting for the Green Party.
I think I feel a little disappointed in myself for not being more involved with the Green Party because now it's becoming very clear to me as a candidate that because I'm green, I'm not getting any press.
Right.
I have a friend that is running with me. Well, not with me, but he's simultaneously running for a position in San Mateo County. He's a Democrat. His name is Dan Stegning. But he's running against Don Horsley. But because he's a Democrat, he gets about 5 calls a day from media to interview.
Right.
I haven't gotten any. So it really is, this is why the Green Party hasn't done well. There's a concerted effort in the media to quell the voices and the ideas of the Green Party. So, gosh, I think 2018, just like you said, should be our year. It should be our year. Let's just sweep it, man. Go green or go to hell.
Right on. Well, I think we have social media now. And I think that we can do it ourselves much more than it was. We were able to before social media. So hopefully
that's true. That's true.
And I think once people hear the Green Party message, it's a populist message. It's a message for the people, right?
That's right.
I think they'll.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, thanks for running, Bridget. And I know I'm going to see you later. We're going to do a panel.
Okay.
So, I'll be talking to you a little bit later.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks, Bridget.
Bye.